Welcome to RESIDE by Sothebys International Realty. I'm Eric Weinbrecht, your host and guide as we dive into the pages of RESIDE magazine to discover more about the incredible people, places, and brands featured within. Please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to @Sothebys Realty on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube to experience incredible homes and stories from around the world. Without further delay, let's get started. Featured in the latest edition of RESIDE, in a roundup of Caribbean destinations, the Dominican Republic is home to a rich cultural history and a highly touted reputation for some of the world's favorite rum, chocolate, coffee, and golf. With me today to explore this incredible destination is Sergio Llach, President and CEO of Dominican Republic Sothebys International Realty. How's it going, Sergio?
I'm doing great. Buenas tardes.
Thank you again for taking the time to join me today. The article in the most recent edition of RESIDE is features these incredible destinations in the Caribbean, and the Dominican Republic is one of them. So where do we start? With all of the choices in the Caribbean, why the Dominican Republic? What makes it stand out?
I would say, my friend, it's the friendly people and the service provided. It's something that's not found on any other Caribbean nation, particularly because Spanish is our primary language. So that's what I would say. The people and the service that they offer.
Now, one of the things that you mentioned, when we first started speaking, before we actually started rolling tape, you told me to add golf into the description of the Dominican Republic. What makes golf so important there?
Well, first of all, the Teeth of the Dog is the #1 course in the entire Caribbean for countless years. And just in our eastern side of the country, we must have at least 20 world-class golf courses. Jack Nicklaus, Pete Dye, Robert Trent Jones, famous worldwide designers. People from all over the world come just to golf here.
And that kind of ties well into the magazine article. It focuses mostly on tourism and the people who vacation there. But what's full-time life like in the DR?
Full-time life down here is great because the DR is not just a small country. It's a very big nation, and we have Santo Domingo just an hour or so away with 3 million people, and there's symphonies and operas and culture and restaurants. And out in the east, where are all the resorts, you have the lifestyle that you want to live, with the golfing, with the weather year-round, with the service year-round, restaurants, marinas, shows. You have everything you could possibly want from a United States or European standpoint, you have with great weather year-round in the ocean 2 steps away.
Are you finding that a lot of people are buying their second or third homes in the DR, or are they really coming and living there full-time?
It always starts out with, let me buy because we're going to use it 2 or 4 weeks per year. And as families get into the culture and the lifestyle down there, it evolves into 6 months a year. The typical lifespan of a buyer in our part of the Dominican Republic can range anywhere from 10 to 30 or more years. So it's really interesting. It's fabulous, actually. Everybody always wants oceanfront property. That's kind of like the dream for Caribbean buyers. But today, it is almost impossible for me to find some great oceanfront property available because all the children and the grandchildren don't want to sell the homes. I have an inventory issue.
Wow. So it's you're having a legacy issue.
Yeah. But it's true. And it's nice because, the kids are like, no, where are we going to go? Not only did we grow up here and our kids are growing up here, but where is there that's anywhere better that offers everything we offer? So it's quite fascinating.
And where do you find your buyers are coming from? Are they local? Are they natives? Or, are they coming from, a specific place? Is there a specific feeder market?
That's one of the most interesting questions about our market. Since Santo Domingo is an hour and a half away, I would say 50% of our buyers come from that mega feeder market, which is Santo Domingo, right in the country. And then the rest of the feeder markets are New York, France, Spain, Canada, all over the world, because there are direct flights to Punta Cana and Santo Domingo from every major airline, and that's the key to any feeder market.
So with 2018 now, well in the rearview mirror, What's on the horizon for the Dominican Republic? What's going on in 2019? What are you looking forward to?
From a tourism and lifestyle point of view, I see it only getting better and better, because as more people learn the differences between, for example, the all-inclusive in Bávaro, Punta Cana areas, they learn about the more upscale lifestyles in certain areas of Punta Cana and La Romana. So I think it's just going to grow. The world doesn't know about Casa de Campo, and the world doesn't know too much about the resorts in Punta Cana, but every year they know more and more. So I think it can only get better. And as living there, more and more I hear, gosh, I'd like to live here more. Gosh, I'd like to live here more. So I see it only positive, Eric.
Well, thank you for taking the time to join me today. I think you've given everybody some insight into the Dominican Republic, and maybe now people will know Casa de Campo.
Tell them to check us out. As we say here, mi casa, tu casa.
Excellent. Be sure to check out the article on SothebysRealty.com to learn more about the Dominican Republic and the other destinations in the Caribbean. Thanks again, Sergio.
Thanks, Eric. Take care. Bye-bye. Ciao, ciao.
From the sandy beaches and warm escapes of the Caribbean, our journey takes us to Portland, Oregon, where the nightlife reflects the city's vibrant, varied, and incredibly diverse cultural reputation. Tebbs, owner and CEO of Cascade Sothebys International Realty, is here to take us out for a night on the town. Hi, Deb.
Hi.
How's everything going?
It's going great. How are you?
I'm doing okay. So Portland was featured in the most recent edition of RESIDE magazine, and I figured you'd be the expert to talk to, right?
Well, I certainly know the city well.
Good. So Portland is very much so in the vernacular of pop culture these days. Tell me why so many people are going to Portland.
Well, I think it's a kind of a combination of a few things. First of all, it's just a flat outright foodie destination. So the diversity of cuisine is unending, with food carts down to 5-star restaurants, and just a diverse food network. The other thing that attracts people to Portland is the craft beer scene. So there are a myriad of breweries, and if beer's not your gig, then there's the wineries that are all within an hour's drive from downtown. You
said craft beer, and I just started nodding my head. Yes, yes. So I mean, the craft beer phenomenon and the cultural importance of cuisine, that's something that definitely becomes part of a city's DNA, but it's something that's part of many different cities' DNAs. What's something that really sets the city apart from other metropolitan cultural hubs in the United States?
As far as the food and the beer, or just the city itself?
Just in general. What's something that's unique to Portland?
Yeah, well, I've been to a lot of different cities, and I think, first of all, to think about that, Portland isn't a big city. It's a little city. I call it a baby city. It's really accessible to walk, so you can walk, from just about anywhere within the city. And I know that happens in a lot of different places, but it's the vibe. It's small. There are the biking, the walking, it's very easy, accessible areas, lots of green belts, lots of water. It's a confluence of 3 or 4 different rivers that come together there. The vibe of the people, definitely laid back and artsy, very different than if you're in New York City or San Francisco. Just a very different culture. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sounds very varied. I'm getting this kind of, and personally, I have not been to Portland, but I'm getting this vibe from you that it's kind of like a Brooklyn with more injections of nature around it.
That's spot on, and I think that. Yeah, the park factor is a big deal. The clean air, the recreation, and then it's really diverse because they have all these little eclectic neighborhoods within the city. So there are a myriad of areas that you can choose to live in. Starting from the Pearl District to Multnomah Village to the Beaumont area, Lake Oswego there, and all of those neighborhoods bring their own flavor to the city.
Okay, so they each have their own kind of unique fingerprint that defines them.
Absolutely, and they're all very diverse. If you're in the Pearl District, you're in a high-rise condo that is overlooking the river, and you're basically not driving anywhere. You're walking or biking. If you're in Lake Oswego, you've got a beautiful home on the lake, and that's a completely different setting and vibe. If you're in Irvington or Northwest, you're in an area of homes that are older and more established and kind of the original neighborhoods of the city. So there's a lot to choose from.
From churches converted into concert venues and Twin Peaks-inspired lounges, the piece at RESIDE paints this very eclectic picture of Portland's nightlife that seems to kind of mirror the eclectic nature of the different neighborhoods. What's your can't-miss spot?
My can't miss spot is Al's Den. And Al's Den is a part of McMinimum's, which again was originally developed out of an old church. And it's this underground place. So you walk underneath and this kind of it's all bricks and dark, kind of a den-like, and there's all different types of live music going on down there. Just real different types of music too. The night I was there, it was kind of bluegrassy, but they've got different venues. Hell Pele is a tiki bar, recently voted #1 tiki bar in America. So that's a cool hip spot. And then the Vault Cocktail Lounge is kind of like a hidden gem in the Pearl District. And if you want to go there to have a real signature cocktail made up for you, that's the spot to go.
I have to say that my favorite part about doing this podcast so far is I'm learning about all these incredible cities that are very accessible for me to get to. And I keep having these things added to my I don't want to call it my bucket list, but a list of things to do every time I go into a new city.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's a kind of a saying in Portland that says, keep Portland weird. And it's true. It's very eclectic. It's eclectic and it's inclusive. And that's the vibe there. And it's really celebrated for the diverse culture of residents, because it's an extremely diverse, from tech to retirement to people who are developing their vineyards, who are growing wine. I mean, it's just, and then, you're an hour away, you're at the Oregon coast, or you're an hour away and you're up skiing in Mount Hood. So it's just the accessibility for so many different lifestyles are all around.
Is there anything special coming to the city that we should keep an eye out for?
Well, I have heard, and I don't know if it's clarified, but there's a group of investors, including the Seahawks quarterback, Russell Wilson and his wife, that are trying to bring Major League Baseball to Portland.
Ooh.
It's the Portland Diamond Project is what the website is around that.
That sounds very cool. I'm a big baseball guy, so that's exciting. It's been a while since there's been an expansion with a new team, so that would be really cool.
Yeah, they do a lot with their Timbers, their soccer,
Yep.
the Timbers, but so that would be exciting for the city for sure.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Deb, and thanks for keeping it weird.
You bet. Thanks for having me on. See you in Portland.
All right.
Thanks. Bye.
Chef Jamie Malone had a busy 2018. Her year-old Minneapolis restaurant, the Grand Cafe, was named one of Food and Wine magazine's best new restaurants of 2018. And her decadently high-end, French-inspired chicken liver mousse donut was named the magazine's 2018 Dish of the Year. On top of that, Chef Jamie and her business partner procured a second restaurant, Eastside, just this past October. Chef Jamie, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's an honor to have an award-winning chef on our second episode of the podcast.
It's exciting for me too.
So, what drew you to French cuisine?
I think I sometimes liken it to the music that you fall in love with when you're young. Most people, I think, the music they first fall in love with when they're 14, 15, 16, they're sort of in love with forever. And that's kind of how I feel about food. I first fell in love with French food, and one of the reasons I love food is you get to learn about all kinds of different cultures. But French food is my first love, so it runs the deepest.
And you're a native to Minneapolis, right?
I am.
So
yeah.
is there? I mean, how did French cuisine come up in the culture there? Is that something that's inherently special to Minneapolis?
No, it's not. And I went to Le Cordon Bleu, so I went to a traditional French culinary school. But actually, before my time, there were some French restaurants in Minneapolis, but when I was coming up, there weren't a lot of them. And I think that made it feel even more special and a little bit exotic, especially the kind of French food that I like to cook, which is very old-fashioned and very, very traditional. So to me, it felt exotic.
So do you find ways to take the traditionalist approach to French cuisine? Do you find ways to kind of work in some of the city into that cuisine?
I think for me, the most important way to do that is to create relationships with purveyors. And, so we have people who do flour locally. Obviously, we're the mill city, so that's kind of a big thing here. And we get a lot of produce locally. That's kind of the biggest way to make the tie-in. But I'm not one of those cooks who's hyper-focused on the place where we're at. I'm kind of more interested in transporting our guests.
Where do you find the inspiration for your dishes?
I think my inspiration for food, it comes through just experiences that have brought me pleasure and that I have loved and have stuck with me and impacted me. And so I always try to distill that within the personality of the restaurant. I get inspiration from really old cookbooks. There's just certain things that, I'll read about, or it's just like, oh man, that's just elegant and stunning. And I just love everything about it. I love, sometimes the necessity from which things came, and then they're, created, and then they're refined over generations to be this thing of elegance and art. And that I just find incredibly beautiful. But as far as, for the restaurant, I try to create dishes, but I also try to create like a whole world. Everything about the restaurant is just kind of its own little world. So we like to tie in everything, not just the food.
So what do you mean by that? Like the decor, the
music, the decor, the style of service, the words we use. I've got a funny story, actually. My business partner, Nikki, one day we were having a conversation and we were talking about exactly this. And I said, we can dig deeper into the words that we use on the dining room floor. And I meant to say, if someone comes in for a reservation, instead of saying great, we should say like marvelous, because it feels kind of old world and unique. And instead of marvelous, I said marvel fluff. Weird. So that's forever our word. So it's marvel fluff. We always joke around about that, but kind of things like that. Just trying to put a lot of spotlight on the nuances.
So to lean on your words, speaking of things that are marvel fluff, how did you come up with the award-winning donut? I've got to know.
It was a work in progress, and an old chef partner of mine, Eric Anderson, and I used to kind of do riffs on things with chicken liver all the time, and that was just one of the evolutions that it came into, and it just really felt like, chicken liver is very old-fashioned and very rich and can be kind of boring and feel a little maybe grandma-ish. Which I do like, but this felt like a super fun evolution of it. I like incorporating pastry techniques into savory food. So we use something called luster dust for the glaze. So it's like sparkly and glittery, and it's got all those kind of whimsical qualities of a French pastry, but it's savory.
Very interesting. I mean, I have a very adventurous palate, as I'm told. I constantly love to try new things. And the moment I read that in both Food and Wine and in Reside magazine, I've got to try it. I've got to get out to Minneapolis to try it. I absolutely have to. You mentioned that chicken liver feels kind of like grandma-ish, and that gets me thinking, how does a background like yours, where you have, this deep and kind of like all-encompassing love for food, but you also have this professional training, how does that differ you from those who are brought up in the kitchen and they kind of cut their teeth with their grandma standing next to them and holding their hands and things like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think most cooks, even who have gone through culinary school, really the way you do cut your teeth is either in the kitchen, or you probably do have some sort of deeper history growing up with food, which I think both are the same for me. I think the big difference with culinary school is you really have a concentrated time to focus on foundational techniques.
So, 2018 has been an absolutely whirlwind of a year, it seems like, for you, with everything that you have going on, and we're just getting into February of 2019. So what do you think this year has in store for you? We've got 2 restaurants now, and we've got a great team, and we're just going to put our heads down and work on making everything better and more fun and more magical. No rest for the wicked, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today on the podcast. Be sure to visit Chef Jamie the next time you're in Minneapolis and experience her unforgettable culinary creations. Thanks again, Chef Jamie.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks again to Sergio, Deb, and Chef Jamie for taking the time to be with us today. Thanks also to Stephen Connolly behind the board and all of you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the Reside by Sothebys International Realty podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. If you're craving more Reside, visit sothebysrealty.com/reside for more from this and previous issues of the magazine. Until next time.